We don't have any. We're pretty boring. We're pretty boring. Both our kids are like, that's really cool.
Good morning, Home Church. Welcome back to the Home Church podcast. A couple of weeks there, we were just throwing down on the Man Cave podcast, so it's great to be back with you guys. Great to see you. We are welcoming the Home Church podcast back with some big players here at Home Church. It is truly a blessing to have you guys on. Thank you guys so much for taking time on a Saturday to come and do this thing. Beth had asked before what started the Home Church podcast. And it's like Zach said, it was kind of a cool thing to do a podcast in general. But as I was studying for youth, I began to realize how important it was to give your testimony. And I feel like that is how everybody knows that we've experienced Christ, that Christ has happened. And it even says in the scripture, you are to give your testimony. So the thing about this is people not only who generally wouldn't talk in front of a church or have time to, because it's not like we can just take the whole time out of Clayton's sermon to have everybody come up and give their testimony. You cut in and you do something like this. And so we do appreciate you coming on. And I know that there are people that will appreciate just hearing things from people who have been there and understand, because it's something that experience definitely is something we don't like. We don't want patience. We don't want that stuff. And I think as you grow older and you grow wiser, it's important for us to listen to our elders, because that's what they don't want to do that now. The youth wants to do their own thing, and they've been told, do your own thing, do what you want to do. And it's something that we don't do enough, is listen to those who've gone through it and say, hey, this is what I did, this is what I've been through. So we appreciate you taking your time to do that. Again, welcome back. And Zach, as we begin this podcast, something that came to mind is the October thing that you and Caitlin are doing. So if you want to talk about that a little bit.
You got to be more specific. Which one? The one at the end of the month?
The one on Halloween night.
Oh, Caitlin has started a tradition with the young adults to where Halloween night we have a bonfire in our front yard, and we get together and just hang out, have hot dogs, s'mores, and we give out candy. Because our little dogs are insane, and every time the doorbell rings, they won't shut up for a solid 5-10 minutes. So we just sit outside, have a bonfire with everybody. Caitlin's dad's favorite holiday was Halloween, so it's kind of a tradition for her that she likes to give out candy. So,
alrighty, we're gonna dive in to the testimony of Dan and Beth Garrett, and as we do this, we're gonna kind of cut this into 2 sessions, so that way you're not stuck on one podcast for however long at the same time. So we don't want to rush the spirit, whatever, if it's something that it does happen to only take an hour or whatever. If it happens to be 3 hours, that's happened too. So we don't rush whatever happens. And so we're going to go ahead and dive in now. And so which of you would like to start off?
You want to start off?
Okay.
So, all right, Dan. So a lot of the time, so often when we have guests on, they have been, as a child, were knew Christ. They were, their parents. Was that the case with you? Were you raised in a home that knew Christ and was going to church?
Yes, I had that blessing.
And so I remember as a kid, you don't say to mega church as a kid, but like James River, that's where I went as a kid. So there was a big church, and then I've been to the little Baptist church that my grandma and grandpa. What kind of church did you grow up in?
I was raised in a Baptist church, kind of an independent Baptist back in that time, in my early years anyway, and then went to larger churches as I grew up and went to college, of course, and things. There were bigger churches and did a few things differently and so forth, but mainly a Baptist and now converted away from the Baptist.
So as a kid growing up in the home, was it your father that was mainly the figurehead in that, or was it kind of mom took you guys to church on Sundays?
In my very young years, my mother was that person. My father, not so much, but there was a point in time in his life when he came close to God, and from that point on, it was pretty much both of them. But my mother was the more active and more verbal. My dad didn't speak a whole lot and so forth.
And that was the case with my childhood too. Was my dad would go to church on, we call it the big three.
Big
Yeah, you have Christmas time, Easter, and what's the other one?
For us, it was Thanksgiving and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like those periods. But my mom was the one that was serving. My mom was the one that I would go shoulder to shoulder with whenever we would serve at James River, and so my mom was the main role model. And it's not like my dad, like I said, he was never belittling to God or anything like that. It's just he was sleeping in and he was tired, and so as growing up, one of the things that I love about my mom was that we had that close relationship.
Mhm.
Were you and your mom close in general as you were growing up, or were you more of kind of, what were you kind of like as a kid?
I was good.
Don't tell everything.
No,
Don't tell
I wasn't
everything.
always good, I'm sure, but I was born again when I was 13 years old. I was baptized when I was 15 years old, and I, was taught enough and never, went to jail, and I never was a dope addict, and I never had a lot of these things that a lot of people have to have come back from. I don't think I was real smart about being aware that it's good for younger people to listen to their parents and older people for the simple reason that they have lived it. They have the years under their belt. And I began to realize that, I think, fairly early in life. And so I soaked up everything I could, be it about finances, be it about what to do in life and not to do, and not to be a liar and not to be a cheater, all those kinds of things, and a thousand other things that are too much to mention. But I think if just people in general, here we sit,
Watch it. Watch it. Watch it.
I just turned 72, but we still feel young, and God's blessed us with good health and so forth. And what, about 13 days, it'll be our 44th year of marriage.
Woo, 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 woo.
So we've had a lot of dedication, had a family in that time, and so now it's just, back to us. But we love that, and we appreciate that it's all worked out that way. And I think a lot of that reason is because we went to church, we sat under some good pastors, we purpose to try to do what's good and right, and in doing so, try to be a blessing to others in our church, especially every time we get a chance. Because if you're talking to somebody who is 40 plus years older than you, and you're a very smart person, you begin to realize that that person has experienced a lot of things I may never experience. And if I can take in 40 years of wisdom that I don't have and take it all in just in a year or two, or as quickly as I can, I'll do better in my life. And I think that's important for young people to get that in their brain as they're going along.
Well, and another thing too is you made mention, you can see other people's faults. You can see where other people failed, and you can be bold enough to say, "I'm not going to do that." Like that. The stove is hot. You don't have to touch it to figure that out.
Touch it.
And some people, that's the thing with God is you can let God break you, or you can bend. You can go
That's
ahead
good.
and you
That's
can fight it, or you can just bend to the idea of, this is how it's going to be. I'm not going to fight this in the beginning.
Yes.
Let's do
That's
this.
good.
And that's what patience, that's something that really God has taught me, and I think understanding. And what's cool is that's something, that's another trend, is like Sydney.
Yeah.
She made comment of how she could just see something, it didn't take her long to understand. I know the stove is hot. I don't have to touch it to second guess. I've seen plenty of people touch it. It didn't make sense to continue and try that out. And so, in a household like that, you learn early. So sounds to me like a loving household. Did you, as a kid, did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes.
So were you close with your brothers and sisters?
Uh, Fairly much so, but there's a real short story about that. I had two sisters, and they were 7 or 8 years older than me. And I was sitting at the table, kitchen table, one time. My mother and my sisters were already going to college, out of the house, and everything. And I said, "Mom, why are Patty and Carol are just 2 years apart? Why am I 8 years younger?" And she said, "Well, I didn't want to tell you, son, until you were old enough, but you were a oops." That's a true story. She told me that right at the table. Oh man, I was a oops. She, well, you were supposed to be Patty and you weren't Patty, and you were supposed to be Carol and you were Carol, and then we just kind of forgot about it. And 8 years later,
Here you are.
So that's who I am, an oops.
And so as you hear something like that, I know. How old were you whenever she said that?
I was about 35.
Oh, okay. So you were okay. That was nice of her.
Till I could soak it up.
That was nice of her. So, I know for myself, one of the things that I didn't appreciate was my sister enough growing up. There were periods where she was ornery and is it?
Brooklyn texted and said that she can't really hear Dan, but when we talk, it blows the mics out of the water.
Okay.
So Nathan's going over there to just some volume, technical issues.
You want me to use hers?
Hey, you want to just have them share the mic, and then we can cut the lapel mic?
Do what?
Technical difficulties.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Thank you to Brooklyn.
Yeah, thank you, Brooklyn.
Thank you.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Is that? I don't know if we're gonna be able to get it any better than that. As far as, well,
I guess this thing's on. It's on.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay.
Do you want them just to share a mic? I don't know where our fourth mic went off to. Thanks, JB. I'm just kidding. We love you, JB.
JB's the best. Very best.
So while Nathan's over there fixing the audio, you guys said you were married for 44 years, right? Or coming up on 44 years.
13 days from now.
So what's your guys' biggest secret for being married that long? As coming from someone that's been only married for 3 years, what's your guys' secret? 3 years, yeah.
For me, I mean, there's many answers to that question, but for me, people need to realize that the Bible is the book of life and how to do it, and they need to read it. And then, as one famous pastor said one time, he said, "I want you to read it and then do it." And if you do that in life, you won't get too far off track. You won't get too far divided from your spouse. You'll realize, this is the person that God gave you to love and to be with for your wife, and to not let things that come up in life have the capacity to put a dent in that of any matter, anything
Right.
that was very deep or whatever. What do you think, Beth?
I think ignore the little things. Just don't like a gunny sack. Don't keep them in a backpack. Don't keep them
Right.
in a sack and pull them out and just
All
let
in one
things
day.
go. just let things go, and pray for them. I don't think we pray enough for our spouses.
Yeah.
Not like God changed them. They're a mess. But it's like what do I need to do as a spouse? Let Him help you to be a husband or wife.
Right. I've learned, especially over this last year, that I need to pray for Caitlin constantly, whether it's work stuff or
Yeah.
just her mental health
Yeah.
or, me just being a better husband to Caitlin.
Yeah,
So it's crazy to see just that little extra 5 to 30 seconds
absolutely.
makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, just minimize stuff. Just
Right.
let stuff go. We just tend to get a hold of things and not let go of them, and it's not worth it. It's not worth your peace, much less theirs.
Right.
I hope we're better.
It,
Anyways, it
Brooklyn said as long as they're talking into the mic, it sounds a lot cleaner and crisper. So,
okay. Um,
again, thank you, Brooklyn,
Thank
for
you,
yeah.
Brooklyn. You're the best.
You
Um,
want to go back and tell a story again?
yeah. So, uh, you're back to your family and your siblings and stuff. Um, I know that I didn't appreciate my sibling until much later. We had our periods where we were friends, and then we were enemies, friends, enemies, blah blah blah. But are you still close with your siblings?
Yes, I think so. Again, I had two sisters, and they were older than me, so their life, because of the 8 years we talked about in the gap there,
Yeah.
uh, they were on into other parts of life that I wasn't into because I was a younger child, obviously, and so that connection wasn't there. But I feel like we were always close to them. We would talk once in a while. We go see them on holidays and things like that, and no division.
So as you're growing up, as you made mention, uh, baptized early, born again early. You said that you understood stuff earlier, from just understanding, learning. You go on to college. What were you going to college to be?
I didn't know for the first 2 or 3 years, but I ended up I have a BA in psychology with a business minor, and my intent was to do some type of psychology work, for people or families or whatever. Psychiatrist work takes a whole nother, medical degree to go with it, so I wasn't really shooting for that. But when I got about junior year, I realized I wasn't the person that should be planning to sit 8 hours a day and listen to other people's problems, and then go home with those, and that it probably could affect my personal life, my married life. I wasn't married at the time, but when I got married and so forth, and so I didn't focus on that, and we ended up owning our own real estate business for many years, and we sold that business 20 years ago, and God's blessed us to be able to have the knowledge and wisdom to just deal in large tracts of land is mostly what I do now. We were in the brokerage business for about 20 years, as I said, and we sold the business and sold some other commercial properties and things over the years, and I love it. And it's such a blessing that God took me away from the psychological stuff and into something that I really loved. Because if you find a job you love, one man said it this way, he said, you don't have to work the rest of your life. You get to go up and do something fun every day that you like to do. Well, I like going in the woods, and I like, doing
So
those kinds
now,
of things.
was that a struggle with you? Were you wanting to be in the psychology field so bad that it was a struggle for you to understand that you had to let that go, or was it very, you said you made mention that it was just kind of easy for you to learn and understand quick? Was that something that you knew right away, oh, that stove's hot, I'm not touching it, or was that a struggle with you?
I wouldn't say it was a struggle at any time, but I didn't really get a handle on it until probably late junior year, maybe even into my senior year of college or last year of college. And it wasn't a struggle. It was kind of God led, I think. It was yay.
Yeah.
It was I get to I'm going to go do
Yeah.
this, and I did a couple of different things, after I was out of college and so forth, and I didn't prefer those either, and one day I bought a piece of 8 acres of land up near Clinton, Missouri, and we didn't have very long, and I sold it, and I thought, I think I can do this. So that's where we started our own real estate company in Buffalo, Missouri, and then we sold that business, many years later and so forth.
And so you said so that entails that at this time you and Beth are together. So how did you two meet?
We met
got
at
the
the. We basically
check you.
met at the Baptist Student Union in Columbia, Missouri, because we both went to University of Missouri
Okay,
and graduated
okay.
from there. Or I did. She
Where
went back
people
to.
hunt spouses. That's what,
Yeah,
that's
it's
what the
the
Baptist
spouse hunting place.
is gonna be.
Well, I had seen her. She didn't know it at the time, but there was a good-sized Baptist church that she went to there in Hazelwood, and we were or not born and raised, but lived in Hazelwood at that time. And I went there on a Sunday morning. This was when we were college age, and I saw this dark-headed girl up there in the choir, and I thought, I think I like that girl. And so after I didn't know her from Adam. And so after church was over, I hurried around because she went out, the choir goes out the back door, and I hurried around and got on that side of the church where I thought she would probably be coming out. And about that time, she drove by in a car going away. She'd already gotten out and gotten in the car, so I didn't get to find out who that was. But then the part about meeting at college came after that. So that's
a long time.
yeah, it was a lengthy period of time after that. I thought that was a girl in the choir.
And so we'll kind of weave into your guys' story here real quick. As we heard Dan's side of the story just while it's fresh and we're here. What was it that you remember about Dan about that time?
I didn't see him that day. He was saying, "Oh, I saw it." And I thought, no. We just would do things with the Baptist Student Union, and being away at college for the first time, being away from home, and he played the guitar. That's it. He was like the big kahuna. Yeah, he played the guitar and sang, and whenever we would have meetings or gatherings or whatever, that's what he would do. But I saw all the other girls just like follow along behind him, so I went, forget that.
Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
She wouldn't follow along behind.
I wouldn't follow along. I'm kind of stubborn in that way. But yeah, we met, kind of introduced in more of a casual way in college at first.
And so I have been to the Mizzou campus,
Yeah, as have I. Yeah.
and it's massive. Like
Mhm.
it's massive. So the fact that you two, I think it's not like trying to say, hey, we've been there. We know it's a very massive campus.
Mhm.
Like, and I know that there are probably bigger campuses, but I haven't been. That's the only one I've been to really besides MSU. And so MSU is fairly decent size, but I mean it's not nowhere near the size
Right.
of.
Mizzou,
I
yeah.
mean the stadium alone is the size of MSU. I feel like.
Yeah.
So for God to bring you two together on a campus that size is incredible in itself. So
Yes, it
um
was.
and which I guess the case is from town to town.
Right.
If you meet from Rogersville, from Republic, but anyways, it's still. With the intent
That
of
is cool, yeah.
you go to. What were you going to college for? And that's something that would be interesting to know as well.
I thought I was going to be a veterinarian, but then I changed my mind and went into journalism. And then on the day that they accepted me into journalism school at MU, I thought, I don't think I want to do that. And so I went into education and got my teaching degree.
And so, just to give people an idea, how far away? Because it's not like those classes are related. It's not. Were you ever? Just besides church, was there ever any way you guys would have crossed paths on campus besides the church?
I don't know. Now that y'all are talking about it, I just think we were doing what we should do. We were seeking out friendships.
Yeah.
We were seeking out a group of people that we had God in common with. I really think that was a big part of it, because if we hadn't been obedient to, we want to be around other Christians, which I don't know how it is now, but back then it wasn't so prevalent,
Yeah,
in the dorms and stuff like that.
It's just funny how all the relationships on here revolve around the same thing.
Right.
Christ driven, and that's just something that is an example for those people who are single, for those people who are looking for a relationship. This is an example of. It's not like these two are anywhere close. It's not like you guys,
Yeah.
whenever you say you went to school at the same place, I think it could get confused of MSU, OTC. This is a massive place. And you guys just so happen to meet through a Christ driven community.
Well, that and when we both went up there, the first thing you did was find a church.
Yeah.
Right.
And it wasn't like, oh, my mom and dad are checking on me to make sure I'm in church. But yeah, you go to church, you go where he is, where God is, and then he'll lead you to people and
Yeah.
situations.
And so that's extremely important because you have to look at Michael and Sydney. You look at Dalton and Lacey. They met through, I always say it wrong, Chi Alpha, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I got it right this time. But for those that are just listening, and that's a big thing with a relationship, and you guys made comment about communication. It's let things go. Don't harbor things. It's not worth it. It takes patience. It takes time. So you guys, as you're going through this time period of, you're kind of like, I don't really care for what I want to do. I'm going to go explore. Dan, you're kind of around the same time period. Are you guys really enjoying this sort of life changing at the same time? I mean, because your junior year in a college, and it's not a small college. So are you guys in this time period, are you enjoying this sort of leap of faith together, or is it something that you're so young at the time, it's just kind of not really, you're together, and it's because I think it's just important to realize that it's not always going to be stable ground. There's going to be change. There's going to be things that occur in life, and things are going to change this way, that way. But you stuck through it. It was a changing period. So I was just kind of curious if it was like on your guys' mind, oh, wow, there's a lot going on here. If you were just so young that it was like, whatever.
I don't think initially we were like spouse hunting necessarily. We were just there going to school and, planned on getting out and working and so forth. So there was a period of time, after that. And it wasn't like we had to hurry, and do this or that. We both got out of school and eventually and so on. You've spoken many times about the size of the campus at Columbia and so forth, and there's like 3 or 4 other colleges there, so there's, 40, 50, 60,000 college kids in that city at any given time. So the interesting thing about that story is back home, where in the Hayeswood, Florissant area, we lived about 1.5 miles apart, but never knew each, and went to high school, never knew each other, at all. And but God can make it out of all those 60,000 people there at the campus that that one goes with that one, and so that is obvious now. It wasn't then, but if young people, that's why we love this church. We love that it's full of young people. We see their groanings and their good things and so forth, but there's a ton of young people here, and if this was an older person church, I don't think we'd be having a podcast. So we are thrilled with it. We love everybody here, and we love Pastor Clayton and his wife, who we've known since she was a baby, and that's that's a different situation. Yeah. But there's just wonderful things going on at this church.
And so,
go ahead. I was going to say, you guys are in the college phase is what we're talking about right now. Was there ever a moment where you kind of dropped off from going to church, or was it just we're constantly going to church, it was ingrained in you guys? Because there has been several stories to where people have gone to college and they kind of like freedom, and, they kind of go on like a Rumspringer kind of thing and venture out and kind of just adventure the worldly aspect of everything. Or were you guys just kind of...
I don't know. I think he's the same way. It just never had any attraction for me. It just never did. But, we grew up and we were in college in a really different time than y'all are, than this time. But yeah, I was always the one that wasn't drinking, but I wasn't judging people. I would go and have fun to a point, and I was always the one that had the car keys. I was the designated driver. But I don't know, it just never attracted me. It just never did. And now we were sent to church. My brothers and I were sent to church because there was a little church at the end of our road. So we would walk every Sunday to church. So my mom actually got born again after my brothers and I did. So yeah, in college, it just never, I don't know. I could stand back and watch it and go, man, y'all look dumb when you're doing that stuff. Y'all look really.
Well, and I think that's another thing too, that you made the comment college was different back then. And that
Yes.
Larry made the same
Yeah.
comment whenever we were talking to
It's
Larry. He was like
everything's
it was a different thing back whenever, it was actual purpose. It wasn't just the title. It wasn't just something that looked fancy whenever you were going out into this world full of jobs. You went to college for a reason. So I think that was kind of like, I don't want to say more trade school. I think nowadays trade schools are kind of where people are fading, more away from, and they're wanting the big college degree just for the name.
Mm.
So
But trade
that's
schools have their own respect in their own right.
Oh,
oh
Nothing
no,
against
that's
trade.
I think
Yeah, I know.
I'm saying I
Yes.
think their version of
Yes.
college is
Yes,
more
yes,
like
I
our
agree with you.
trade school.
Yeah,
I should have
yeah.
said
I
that
agree
better.
with you.
I
Yeah.
mean it is, but it isn't. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
I think college degrees back then actually had a purpose.
Well, you
They-
had a
Mhm.
you had a definite thing you were going to be.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I'm going to do such and such studies or studies. You were going to be a lawyer. You were going to be a doctor. You were going to be a teacher. You were
Right.
going to be a thing
Mhm.
that had a job out there to get.
And that's trade school. You're going to
Right.
be a welder, you're going to be a
Absolutely.
mechanic, you're going to be so that's something that is very important too. And
Absolutely.
so as that, Dan, we'll go back to the Dan story here. Um as you're changing your role as what you want to be, and you, hey man, this, I really like this selling the land. I get to be part, like you said, you like to be in the woods and stuff like that. When was it that, do you remember the aha moment? You said there was the time, but was there that, oh man, God, this is really what you've got for me, thank you? Can you explain that time? Because I think a lot of people, they look for that, and that's kind of where I'm at right now, and that's what really interests me is, when was that, God, this is where you have planted me. I've toiled, I've pained, I've wondered, but I've trusted, and here it is. Do you remember that moment?
I remember that moment exactly.
Will you please tell?
Yes, and we started our business. We got married, and I had actually opened our office there in Buffalo on July 15th of 1979, and we were married on October 27th of that same year. Just a couple months later, she was still living in St. Louis and finishing, school and things up there, and came down. So we got married, and then we moved to Buffalo. And I'd been working hard getting listings. I had a brokerage business, you could call it. Garrett Realty is what it ended up being. It was something else at the time because I worked for a specific company. But I had been listing and working and listing and working. Well, we weren't getting any sales, because I was a new guy in town. You didn't know lots of people. They didn't even know who I was or whatever, that I was there. And we were going along, and I was just so close to the point where the little tiny bit of money that I had to start our business, get a business open, get advertising going and all the things, just this little small amount of money. And I hadn't had any sales all fall long, from July all the way into, and it was getting, what was it, near the end of the year, maybe even into January. I had an old listing that I had inherited from the person who had this office years prior, and I take that back. I had one $10,000 sale, which at a $10,000 sale, in the end, it made me about $600 for several months of time. So my money was going away, and I wasn't making any sales. Well, we also had this old listing, and it was 520 acres. And I was right at the point where in fact, I even told Beth, I'm going to have to go to Springfield and get a job doing something, because we don't have enough income coming. Well, all of a sudden, this couple walks in who I'd never seen before, and they had seen an ad that I had or something. They had a brochure at that time with it on there. And to shorten the story, they bought this 520 acres, which was a very, very, very large sale at that time. It still is today. And so we had to take off in her little car and drive all the way out to Colorado where this man who owned that 520 acres was to get the contract signed by the seller. We had the buyer's signature on it. And by selling that, all of a sudden we had, you know, a very large income for us at that time. It was, you know, and we were all's good. And like I realized that at that time in a after the fact that God grew our patience and to believe in Him, and all of a sudden He handled this huge amount of money to us through the commission of a 520-acre sale that paid all of our back bills, got us enough money to go forward in life, and I knew this is why I'm here. This is why God put me here.
And another important little tidbit of information, and it's not that tidbit, is that contract wasn't here. You had to go to Colorado to sign that contract, and you made the comment that, hey, we're pinching pennies here. So you have to go to Colorado. It's not just down the road. You have to go, and so
It's a
on a
big thing.
tight, that's faith,
Yeah, that was faith had to be demonstrated.
and
You know,
you didn't sit there and right. You didn't sit in your chair at home, and God said, here it is.
Mhm.
You had to go, and that
we had
took
to do
extra faith.
something.
So some people see this bright little light and they go, there it is, and then they go to grab it and it's not there, and they're like, why not? It's like, no, that's your faith is giving you this breadcrumb.
Mhm.
Here's your breadcrumb. This is evidence of your faith. Please just keep the faith. Please keep the faith. Here's evidence of it. And so the evidence was they wanted it, right?
Mhm.
But it wasn't said and done right there. You had
Yeah.
to extend
Act
it
on it.
even further.
Yes.
Whenever you had to drive, did you have children at this time?
No.
No. So it's still a big step for just two people, right? Going here whenever all else does not look good, right?
Right. Pretty much going across country.
You made
Yeah,
the comment
it was 6
her
or
little
8 hours. It was more than that. It was what, 8 hours there and 8
was
hours
fun, though.
back. It burned long ways. To
and
time
you
to
made the
get there, maybe
comment
more than
of her little car. So it's not
Yeah.
like we're talking about
salary.
a Lexus. We're not talking
came
about
later.
a brand
That
new
came later.
Cadillac,
No,
a brand
no,
new
no.
Lexus.
Little car.
No,
So
we had a 30-mile-gallon car, and we needed it just to be able to afford the gas to go that far and
So-
then come home.
So you're extending this faith. So for those that are listening, you hear this. You hear wow, this amount of money God showed you here, but you still have to go to Colorado. Funds aren't here. Beth made the comment, but it was fun. It was a mindset. What was your mindset? Beth says, "Man, this is fun." What's your mindset as you're in this car going to Colorado? Because as a man, we want the family to have nothing to want or need for. You want Beth to be able to go to Battlefield Mall and buy whatever purse she wants. I know that wasn't around back
It
in the
wasn't
day,
there
but
then. It wasn't there.
but you want these things for Beth to if she just wants to go get them. And can't answer you right now, Clayton. Sorry, buddy. But so you don't have that availability, right, to just go do whatever we want. On top of that, we're gonna have to drive to Colorado. Beth says it's fun. What's your mindset at the time?
Of doing that, you mean?
Yeah,
itself?
as you're going to Colorado,
I
what's
was,
your
I was excited to the nth degree to only ever have a $10,000 sale, which is the same as nothing, as far as commission goes on it, and to go up of the sale price of a 520-acre piece of land. I was just thrilled, and that was about the time probably we have a little statement that we use at home sometimes when fantastic things happen. We say, "Praise Almighty God in heaven," and it's got used,
and that's a mindset. You were excited because you had this opportunity, and a lot of people think that whenever you've gotten it and whenever it should be right there, right for your grab, you can take two mindsets. If there's the next step, Noah, whenever he's building the ark, not only did he take all that time to build the ark, he's got to wait in the ark. Not only does he have to wait in the ark, he has to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And then he can come out. All of these blessings, God's giving breadcrumbs through. So
Yes.
you guys have this mindset of, God, you've given us this. and it's ours for the taking. Clayton makes comment about the comment that I made about leaving blessings behind. You could have easily said, "Man, that we don't have that money. God, that was nice of you to present that opportunity to us, but we just can't do this right now." You had faith in him. That was a mindset of faith in God. And it seems like you're learning this at such a young age. People want to know success. And you made the comment, if you really want to enjoy life and never work, do what you love for a living. You're picking up on this quick, and it seems like people want success overnight and it doesn't happen. So as somebody who has this patience, who has this understanding of, we're going to have to trust God, and whatever God puts us through, we're just going to accept it. We're not going to question it. We're going through it for a reason. Was that something that you also understood as well? Hey, these things, if we just trust in God, is going to happen for a reason? Or was your mindset just simply, I've got to do this? Because I think that's two ways that you could take that road. Is, I'm doing this because I have to, or are you understanding these things are happening for a reason, patience, time, all of this stuff?
Uh, I think that was part of it, but not too much detailed at that time. But you realize that maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years afterwards, you know, you can
Yeah.
see the light of what God did at that time, and we were faithful to stick and stay in that position and stay in tithing, and that's one thing.
When we did not have money for
Yeah, we always have been tithers. You know, we read Malachi 3:10. It says right there, it says, "Test me in these things." And people,
did.
yeah, we did. We didn't have money to tithe. You'd say, "Oh man, I got to buy a loaf of bread," but we would always tithe, and we've been tithers. And people don't understand that God keeps His word. And I went back one time and figured this, and as best I can figure, because it says some this, as best I could figure, He has given back about, in fact, over 1,000% of the amount that we have tithed.
You don't know
You don't realize it's going on at the time, and all of a sudden you have another big, you have another big this, and like on that the big sale I mentioned to you. Well, in a small town, when a big piece of land like that moves, it gets around who sold it. All of a sudden, we've got listings, land listings coming in the door, right? Oh, you sold that 520, didn't you? Yeah, I sold it. You know, wait, can you sell my 300? You know, and so it builds upon, and you realize we tithe on the money, and now it comes in many percents more than you gave for the amount, for your tithing. And people should take, as I say, it's the book of life, read it and then do it, and you'll be happy.
And being, I'm not necessarily in the sales business, but it kind of is, being in the mechanic in the auto world. You call somebody up, hey, it's costing this for us to fix it. For us to fix it, this is what it costs.
Yes.
We know what our guy's worth. You just because we are a little bit more expensive in this way, it's not that we're trying to rip you off. It's that we're trying, this is what it costs for our guys to fix it. So with that sales sort of, you're going out and selling. You made the comment of just trusting in him, tithing no matter what. Here it is. This is the evidence. I know at times it can look like, oh wow, this is, just because you have a lot of sales and you have that there, that means a lot more work. That means a lot more angst. That means a lot more, you've got this appointment this day, this day, this day, this day, this day, this day. Not only, yeah, that's amazing that we have all this work, but just because you have all this work doesn't mean that it's going to produce fruit. Just because it's there doesn't mean you're going to do the right thing with it. You may lose that sale because it takes too long for you to get to them. There's that option. I'm not saying that that ever happened with you, but there is that opportunity. There's those things that weigh on your mind. As you're going through this, I deal with $3,000 is a good size ticket. You're talking about 200 acres. You're talking about massive amounts of money at this time. This is another thing that is going to weigh heavy on somebody's mind when they're the provider for their family. Were there ever those moments where you're like, all of this grain in this barn, and I myself have got to figure out a way to do all of this? And it was like, oh, that's right. I don't have to, because God's given this to me, and there's going to be a way to work through this. Did you ever have those moments?
I think so. You have to realize in real estate, especially when you're just an individual businessman and you don't have 50 salespeople and things like that, you learn that it's a very inconsistent money, and unfortunately in life, our bills, your electric bill, your phone bill, your car payment if you have one, those kinds of things are monthly. They're almost always monthly. Well, when you're in the business, as I say, I had gone several months with not a dime, with not anything. And this amount of money you had to start a business is whittling down, and you're pinching at every corner. But you have to realize that it takes time in real estate, and that's something that's not a consistent flow of money if you're just counting on sales. Now you can make consistent flows by other things if you invest your money wisely. Maybe you're conservative, you got CDs, or maybe you have stock dividends and things that bring you money on a more regular basis. But yes, in that in the business that we chose, that's a rough thing. Now it helped a bunch, as she mentioned later. She taught for many years. When she got just that check from her teacher job, and it was a regular check. Wow, God took the pressure off, because we would have money twice a month or once a month, whatever it paid, but it was consistent money that you could count on, and then that let me go free and hard to work as I wanted to. I'd leave in the morning, didn't come home until after dark lots of times, just getting the day's work done. And but it let me do a job that when I did it grew large sums of money, not consistent sums of money, but large sums of money. And you realize that if you're seeking something that God wants you to do, blessings will come where you can all of a sudden, well, we don't make car payments, we pay for cars. We don't make house payments, like in our case, we haven't made a house payment for I don't know how many years and years and years and years and years. We own it, and when tough times come, it's, oh, well, the interest rates they're going up to 12, blah, 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 and there used to be 3. We don't care because we don't have a note, and that is such a blessing. That one little statement right there to young people, if you don't have a note, you are such a blessing, can be such a blessing to other people and to the church and to other people in other ways, too many to mention, because you're not paying 80% of your payment going to interest. You know what I'm saying? And if I go off on that, I'll be there all day and a half.
Well,
but anyway, that God can make things happen in such a way that makes your life easier.
and one of the things that I really enjoy, and I think I really enjoyed listening when I was growing up. Me and my grandma would listen to Kenneth Copeland, Jesse Duplantis, and a lot of people get mad because they're prosperity preachers, and it kind of twists me, because they're just letting people know how much they believe in God, and if it is a big faith, they've got that faith in God. And I love so much that aspect and that mindset. You're dealing with these big things, but you're saying to yourself, it doesn't matter, God has this. And you're believing in God so much that he is going to bless you with big things. You made the comment, you're not being braggadocious in, look at what we've done, our house is paid off, look at what God has done. You made the comment, it's such a blessing. And I think that
God will
it's
give
not
you
going to
those
come
blessings
overnight
to do that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to go to church and tie the $10 bill and then boom, it's done. You're going to go through pain. The barrel's going to be empty. You're going to have, at the end of the season, you're going to have one little piece of grain left that first year. And you're going to say, just one piece of grain, instead of that mindset of, look, he gave us one grain. We made it at the end of the year. And that is something that right now I'm going through, and I'm understanding that as you get held down and you look at that one piece of grain, you can take a mindset, oh no, we've only got one piece of grain, or thank God he left us with excess of what we had. And so
sometimes you have to take that loss to be able to get that win later on.
That one piece of grain put in the right place can make a whole ear of grain.
Yes.
And so you can take that little piece of grain, you can take that mindset of, look at what God left us. You can take that and you can plant it in somebody, and they can be like, wow, we really thought Dan and Beth were living the high life and all of this stuff, and it just came easy. It takes faith. It
Mhm.
takes those nights of, well, I don't know how. I know that it doesn't look good, but I know you've got it. And so you're learning these things, and people seem to think, like I say, it puts it in perspective for me because I deal with $3,000 is a lot of money for me. I'm like,
That is a lot of
wow,
money.
that's
There's no question.
that's a
It's a
lot
lot
of
of money.
money. You're dealing with properties, like we said, and it's a lot. And Beth comes along. She's got a steady paycheck. God provides that for you guys. You're able to then extend your faith in
Mhm.
this by saying, okay, God, you have provided this. I am going to use this that you've provided with us, this tool that you've provided with us, and I'm going to extend my faith by going out and believing that I can do this with you. And so that's another important thing. You didn't just say, all right, Beth's got a paycheck now.
No,
We're going to go
no,
ahead and
Wasn't
just
enough this
enjoy
time.
no.
life. You
Not in
didn't
the
do that.
least.
And
Not
I
in the
think,
least. And it doesn't matter how much it is. You should never put,
yeah,
put your feet up and do that. But it's just thinking. I believe God looks at it this way. You'll get extra blessings when God realizes that you have the faith to do good things with them. Of course, being tither and being blessings to other things as well. But most of the time, unless some lucky person wins the lottery or whatever, which happens and so forth, but most of the time, people that have been given a huge amount of money, within 18 months, they say almost all of it's gone. Even people who win hundreds of thousands of dollars in the lottery, they look at them 18, 24 months later, and the money's blown because they don't have the wisdom and the faith to retain the money and do good things with it. So and let it grow. That happens, and I see people every day. They used to be this and used to be that, and now they're way down on the pole again because they blow everything that God gives them, everything that comes their way. So that's what I would say to people: be a saver, be a tither first, be a saver second, and then look at what you have to buy other things.
and so you guys are real estate. When do kids come along in your guys' life?
Can you take that part?
Go ahead.
We waited probably about 5 years. So, and we got married all of our friends had already gotten married. I had more bridesmaids dresses than I had shoes. I mean, I just was in a lot of weddings, and we just waited. We just felt like, well, we were 25 and 28, I guess, when we got married. So, we were in our 30s when we had fit kids.
That's the same with me in Brooklyn. So, was there a time when you guys were wanting children and praying for children? Because I know for at home church that has been the prayer for a long time. So it's a different, I think I guess it could be a different thing for each church going on at that moment. I don't know if that, I just remember going to church and that I don't ever really remember that being a movement when I was a kid. So was that ever a thing for you guys, or was it just kind of, hey, things are going so good with us trusting God? God, we've got it in your hands. Because it didn't take me in Brooklyn very long to realize, hey, we just got to give it. It took us a minute, and then it seemed like we were able to understand very quickly, okay, we were able to drop it. We don't need to touch the stove anymore. We're done. Was that the case with you guys, or
Yeah.
was it just one of those, whenever it happens, it happens?
No, I think
No,
we
we had to
just
have faith.
we
there was a period
we
of time
waited.
where we
Well,
wanted to have a child, but
well,
it
no, our
took a little
first
time.
one came pretty quickly. She at 5 years, we said, well, I think it's about time, and I guess I was 31 when I had Jenna. But then after we had her, we wanted to wait, a good length of time. We had the blessing of watching how other people did it and going, I think that's a little bit close in age, but everybody's different. So when we decided we wanted to have a second one, it took 5 years
We
to
had to
get him here.
have faith for 5 years for
We
the
had to have
second
faith for
child.
5 years because that I can somewhat identify with the girls here that that's a struggle because we did.
The people in church that have been having a tough time with that,
Remember that?
we remember that. We were right there, but I just say have faith, give it over to God and have faith, and it'll find its way.
Yep.
Because it was 5 years at a time, and we were we should have kids between 2 and 3 years. Well, 5 years gets to be a long period of
We
time.
were already old.
Yeah, we were old when we got
We were
married.
already
compared to
old.
a lot of people get married at 19 or 20, 22, whatever. And I was 28, she was 25, so we were already down the line.
And so you add that faith on top of another. You're having to have faith through your work, through God providing through your job. It's not just one of those things where it's coming one at a time. It's now you're having faith for a child that can wear on somebody. Was that something that you struggled with, or was it just 5 years of, okay, God, you've got it?
For me, I think it came about was when we finally just forgot about, we've got to get a baby, we've got to have a baby, we've got to get pregnant. Just forgot about it, enjoy your spouse, and next thing you know, well, we've got a baby, And I think that's a real thing for a lot of people. They're so intense at that time, and we've got to do it this way and doing this way, and it's not working, and we're going to see the doctor, and blah blah blah, and we went through all that stuff I just said. We went through that stuff, and I've even told people in this church, and that have been trying to have a baby, I said, just enjoy life and forget about having a baby, and then not very long, oh, so and so's pregnant, and I think after people can just relax that they don't have one and not be tightened up about it, that we're not having our kids exactly 2 years apart or whatever the time might be. That's when you have a baby.
Well, and that was that. I remember whenever I stopped, and as Zach's made the comment before about how he thinks that not Woody. What's the other? I can't think of Max.
Oh,
You made the comment in his testimony about how Max, God gave him Max because Max helped him out through a time. And he said some people called that, that's crazy. And I say no to that
and
because,
for clarification, Max is one of my dogs.
yeah.
I thought so. I'm like,
Yeah, but my dog Murphy, I feel like until me and Brooklyn couldn't enjoy each other and enjoy Murphy and take Murphy out whenever we really didn't want to go for walks because it was too cold.
it's good training.
He loved it. He
Good
loved
training.
Oh, they
walking.
love it.
And so we would sacrifice that time and we would enjoy company as a family. And we couldn't value another person in that role, because it was just kind of us every once in a while. And then we started enjoying each other's company, and then we got Murphy. And then Murphy kind of led to Willow because we enjoyed the triangle,
We'll have to tell Willow that.
So as you just enjoy the time. That's something big.
Yeah.
Is just saying to yourself, hold up, we don't even appreciate what God's given us here. Let's take a step back. Let's go back to our marriage because we were so focused on work. We were so focused on, the first child, all of that experience. We need to go back to our marriage. God will say, let's put the brakes on it here. We're still in a growing process. Was that ever a realization? Were you ever like, hey, it was so about this and this and this that we need to get back together? Was that a conversation you two had, or was it just kind of something that God just worked his way in and it just so happened that you two, because I think communication in a marriage is important. And did you get to that, did you sit down and say, hey, we just got to love each other. We need to go back to us. Was that a conversation you two had?
No, I think because we had our daughter, and then it wasn't like we were trying to do it every 2 years. So many people feel that pressure. We didn't feel that. I think part of it for us was we were older. We were older when we got married. We were older when we decided to have kids. one of the things that kind of put off having children at all was the fact that I was a first grade teacher. And I would
Yeah.
just come home at the
Oh,
end of the day and go,
Yeah, that's why
and
we
I
didn't have any
loved
for
them.
5 years.
I
Once you got
loved them. I
married.
taught first grade for 5 years. And I was really getting that fulfilled, being able to be around the little ones and everything. I don't know, we just never did. We just didn't make it a project. It was like God will send when we knew.
Yep.
I quit teaching when we had Jenna, when we had our first. And we just knew that there'd be another one. And when he came, he came.
and so I'll ask Dan, at this time, are you serving in the church as well as the business, as well as being a father, or are you just guys continually going to church? Are you serving, or are you guys just a steady constant in church at this point?
Well, like I do the money,
Yeah.
here. It's one thing I do, and I'm happy to do it. Because of being in other businesses, like working in a restaurant business for a while, I've dealt with and handled lots of deposits and lots of money and things like that. So I'm not so worried about me serving. I just want to do things that take a worry off of Clayton and Jamie, because they work tons of hours that nobody knows about, and for them to not have to worry about the money, that's, to me, that just takes one thing off of them. And we come here and we do a lot of praying for the church, and I mean, I try to make it a daily thing to pray for everybody in this church, their families, their health, their finances, and it's just a thing that God's called me to do. It's not I'm bragging about it or anything. It's just that you are an age and a time, and I've blessed you. You pray for these young people that are just getting started, and a church family is what we look upon it as. And stuff. And it's not like, oh, there's so and so or this and that. I don't like that. No, everybody that walks in that door, we want them to feel welcome. And if they're a visitor, and I think they do feel welcome if they're a regular attender or a member here, and we want to keep that and grow that. And we're basically a 3-year-old church. We started that first time. We've got a podcast. We started that, with 20 people in the little building we had over
Blue
there.
room, yeah.
Yeah, there's like 20 people
Yeah.
3 years ago. So now we're sitting, I think last Sunday it was 114 or so. Some Sundays it's been as high as I think 141 or 2, and things like that. So God's growing things, and we might need to be looking for a bigger building before very long. So that's just blessings of God. But I don't look at anything that we do as a specific calling. Maybe it's just there's jobs to be done. Beth loves to work the door and greet the people and things, and there's jobs to be done. And Beaver says, "What are you doing vacuuming in a parking lot?" So anyway, I just can't stand it when it's nasty in front of the church. So I've got to think about that. I got to get all the cigarette butts and everything else up, in the trash. It shouldn't be that when you come to church, And when someday we have a freestanding church, it won't be that. So, but we do what we can do here to make it nice for the people coming in.
And so that's another thing too, that as you're older and more experienced, for those people who are looking for a spot to get into church, I know every weekend we have the announcement videos that tell you get plugged into home church through this and this and this. But for those people who are kind of second questioning it, or they see the announcement videos, and every time they kind of get the urge to by the end of church, the enemy's talked them out of it. So you made the comment, you do what you enjoy. Beth enjoys greeting people. You enjoy a clean church. So for those that think that coming in early and helping wash a window or helping run a vacuum cleaner isn't serving the church, that's taking time away from what you would be doing, resting or just sitting around talking, enjoying. You're improving God's area, God's little community that he's created here. And that's important. You don't have to have this massive role. You don't have to have a title. You
No.
don't have to have a little gold plate and a desk in an office
No.
to be considered
We've had
helping.
all that stuff. We don't need that stuff.
Yeah.
We just
I
want
love
to
being
want
a
to do.
grunt worker.
We want to
I
do a
just love
job,
being a
and
grunt
if it means moving chairs, if it means cleaning up, none of that matters. I don't have to have the high-powered job. We sit on the board, of course, and things like that. But that's because we've known Clayton and Jamie. They know who we are and how deep we go,
Yes.
and that we've loved and known them, or not Clayton as much, but Jamie literally since she was a baby, she'd come and stay at her house, and grew up with our daughter who's about her age, and it's just like there's another child there,
Yeah.
So we know them, and we want to do stuff for them and for the people that are here.
And I think that's a big important part too. You don't have a selfish heart. There's nothing in it in your mind for you.
No.
You are helping. You are helping. It's
We don't
not
come
it's
here
not a
to
mindset.
be blessed, but we are being blessed because we come here and because God is being a blessing to not just us, lots of people in this church.
And that's the upside down kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of
Mhm.
people that are being blessed in this church beyond their wildest
Yeah.
imaginations.
And I think that it's important for people to understand. Please take the time to slow down and learn.
Mhm.
You can watch all the TikTok videos you want, and I do enjoy TikTok, but I know going into these videos, watching them, it's just garbage. It's going to be funny and it's going to entertain me, but at the end of the day, whenever I see these videos of whatever it is, they can be cut and pasted however they want to play it.
Mhm.
They can
Mhm.
do all of this fancy stuff to it, so it's just entertainment. If I go into it with that mindset, it's just entertainment, that's fine. But instead of diving into the word and understanding the truth and the reality and the fact that it is an upside down kingdom and that you are going to have to sacrifice, Jesus tells you he came as an example. What was his example? And what do you mean an example? Oh, he was nice. No, 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 no. He did more than that. He sacrificed.
Way more.
You're called to sacrifice, and that is an important part of it, is realizing you have to get to a mindset where it's not doing good things because you're going to get this. It's not a mindset
No,
of
that
I
doesn't even
served.
come into our mind.
Yes,
That doesn't even come into our mind.
and it takes that understanding of this is this is just going to be fun, that we enjoy it. And so you get that mindset, you have to learn that, and it's not something that is going you're going to wake up mornings and be tired and be like, oh man, I don't want to have to blow this out all the time. It would be nice to come into this parking lot and enjoy company with the others. It would be nice to come into the sanctuary whenever it's cold and have it nice and warm. There's going to be those mornings, but then you realize why you're here, and you realize, oh, this is my role. I enjoy doing this. God, this is what you've called me for. You've called me to do this. I'm not a whatever title the world wants to give me. Yes, you were a teacher, and they gave you a wherever school it was that you taught. They gave you were a teacher at this school. No, you were just a teacher. You were a teacher, and the Lord was blessed you through that. That's
Mhm.
what you were. They
Mhm.
wanted to give you the title of a school, and I'm not saying that it's wrong and that you shouldn't. If you taught at this school, be proud of that. You were there. That's where you served your time. But until you realize that you don't just work at a factory, you don't just do this. When you begin to change your mind to, okay, whatever I'm doing, God, I'm doing it for you,
Mhm.
then the next thing you know, you're no longer that factory job that you're working. It gets lifted up out of that, and God places you in a different pond, and He's like, you're able to go here now because you've grown comfortable
Right.
in this pond and you've understood what blessings are around you. Now you can be elevated. Now you can go here. You're strong enough, because if he were to put you out into the world right away, they'd eat you up.
Yeah.
If you think you can handle everything, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You're terribly wrong.
Mhm.
It takes years. You,
Within
you you
years.
need to realize as a younger person that you need time and years, and you can all of a sudden you can be elevated far beyond where you think you ever would be, and that you can't handle it. But if you got there, somebody thought you could handle it, and you will. You will.
But it takes going through sometimes
Yes,
what it would take when you're in that position.
definitely.
And I've heard a mixture of things. I've heard, God's not going to bless you if you can't handle it. Then I've heard God blesses you because you believed him that you couldn't handle it. You have to realize you're going to have to go through what before God can say, here you go all the way. You're going to have to take little dabbles of what you're going to have to go through to get that blessing. And a lot of people think, like Dan said, that large amounts of money is the answer. You can't, that's not the answer.
No.
You said what with it. You were smart with it. You did what with it. The first part of it went to who?
Tithe it.
Tithe it. So you invested it in the best bank possible,
Yes.
first and foremost. And you're not second guessing all of these, these not accusations, but all these bills that are coming up, like you said, monthly. It's not like they stop unless it's, like you said, your mortgage is paid off, but you still have electricity and stuff like that. But for the most part, you still have stuff that's going to be.
Yeah, everybody's got monthly bills. No matter if you've got everything paid off, you still have a substantial amount of outgo every month.
But God's blessed you with what you've got. So why would he all of a sudden say, okay, here we go? If God blessed you with it, he entrusts you with it. He's been kind with It's whenever you second guess what he's giving you that it can start to slip away. And once you let it drop, it's gone. You can let the enemy take it and run away with it. God can't, unless you really want that and accept that it's your blessing and that God gave it to you, it can be taken. And
Yes, it can.
he's going to try to take it. It's not like he's going to say, oh man, you know what? They were really kind last week and strong last week. They really showed me up. It's not going to stop. And Clayton said it before. There's not a devil around every corner, a demon around every corner. But that's not to say that stuff isn't going to stop you just because you have belief. So as you are serving, as you are doing these things because you just enjoy it, another piece of advice that you would give to somebody who is looking for a place to serve, you made the comment that it's not about, yes, you are on the board, but it's not about the title. That's important as well. You aren't worried about where God is placing you. You just know that God has placed you there and that you are going to do the best to your ability to what God has called you to do.
Yeah, you realize it said, why am I on this board or why am I in this place? I didn't do anything that wonderful to be that. We just did, but we did what we felt God was calling us to do, and as it turns out, that's how, what God called us to do. I didn't ask to be on it. I was asked to be on it, but I didn't ask to be on it, and things, and it's that way in work, in 1,000 different things in life that you can and will do, and God will bless you to do them if you're doing them. And one thing we were talking about the payments, I always talk to young people, if you get to where you don't have a house payment and you don't have big car payments, like just those 2 or 3 things, life gets much easier. When those things are gone, as long as you don't go hook up on say, okay, well, I've got all these things paid for. Now I'm going to go get a $200,000 boat and I can make a payment on that. Well, if that's what, you feel God wants you to have and you really want a boat, you'll get a boat sooner or later. But watch out what you're going to do to yourself and your income flow, because income flows can change over the course of life. Well, I'm a this or that and I make really good money doing this or that. That can change at any moment in time. Things can happen where that market's not there anymore. Your health won't let you do that job anymore. That industry just fades or whatever it might be. There are 1,000 things. So you don't want to count on something that's not there, but you have faith through, God that it will be if that's where he's put you and you're doing wise things with what he's given you before.
Imagine that small group, though, on a boat. That'd be insane.
Yeah.
One of the things that I want to go back to is, and because I think it's important to talk about financial freedom. We've talked about the struggles with childbirth on here. We've talked about struggles with depression on here. I think another struggle is financial struggle. So for those listening that are having financial struggle, we'll talk to you guys, because it's not that I just love the mentality that Dan has. It is, whatever God's going to bless. So I want to go back to sort of the prosperity, oh, you shouldn't, blah, 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 blah. Just because it's a large amount of money doesn't make you feel any different way. It's just saying to yourself, yes, the world says this is, God says this is. Explain to people who obviously it sounds like you're very financially smart. Explain to those who are in a financial struggle mindset wise of, God's blessing us in this way, so, just good enough is good enough for us. How to change that mindset of just good enough. Because it seems like that's not a mindset of yours. I would like to pick your mind and just kind of see what it's like in your mind, because I think that we can get to that level as Christians is just good enough is good enough. And we are not willing to accept the fact that God is willing to give
Way
abundantly. And I
Way
think that
more.
that mindset alone can be a faith condenser. Just
Mhm.
being able to accept the fact that, hey, if it's $1 million mansion, there it is. If God's given it to me, it's mine. It seems like that can be just such a compressor, and it's not like it makes you um, any less in God's eye. It's just the fact that you're not willing to go above and beyond. You're willing to stay level. How to get past that mindset?
I think some people. I'll go back to the thing that we depend on every day. Is some people think it's evil or wrong or not godly to think about finances, to study about it enough to know which is the best way or a good way for you, that person or them to grow their assets so they can be a blessing more to their church and be a blessing, in different ways. And the verse just simply says, watch your flocks. Well, I see people all the time, especially young people. They've got a job, maybe the wife's got a job, they got some income, but they don't watch their flocks. They don't watch, am I doing something smart with this money, or am I blowing this money on insignificant things that they're $29, they're $82, they're $54, but you could do life just as well without those things. And I'm not saying don't ever buy anything. I'm saying look closely. Do I need to spend that money on those things? Because at the end of the year, and I see this in our own household every year, because why did we buy that? We're not even using that thing. Why did I do this? Not even using it.
Right.
Amazon, get rid of the Amazon.
A lot of Chinese food.
Get rid of that, And in doing so, you over time you begin to find, wow, this account's got 2 or 3,000 more than I thought was there. Well, this account's got this amount of money more than I thought was there, and you begin to realize that you can do life a lot less expensive than you thought you could, and even for people who have the major things paid off or paid for. You must, again, read the book of life, and then as John Hagee says, do it. Watch your flocks. Check your finances. See where your income flow is coming from, or where it would be better to be that it brought you more, that you got more income. Some people keep huge amounts of money just sitting in a bank account making 0.3 interest. I know some people like that, and they're too scared to do anything. Well, if you picked up, you did some hunting, you did some looking, and you picked up a nice CD. Some of them are paying. I just talked to my brother-in-law up in North Missouri. He's got a bank up there paying 6% on the money, on the dead money. Well, he sold a property. He's got 250 something in his hand. Well, he said he put 100 over here, and make that $6,000 a year for free. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to do anything. And that's just one thing. That's just, there's 1,000 things out there that you can invest in safely. And I would caution people, say, don't do a lot of things that aren't guaranteed or unsafe. And I'm a victim of that myself. We used to invest too much in the stock market. We'd put too much in one place, and it would go the wrong way, and you'd take a big hit. We'd have been way ahead had I not done some of those things. But it took some of that to teach me not to do it, so I can say from an authority position what I just said.
Right.
Young person, don't do it if you don't know about it.
Do your research.
Do
when it
your
comes to
research.
investing and stuff
Do
like
your
that.
research
Yes.
and see where, if I back up 10 years and see if I would have put this amount of money here, where would I be?
Right.
And would I be safe
And then-
doing it?
I mean, do your research, yes, but also pray about it as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's the first thing.
So,
pray
I
for
think
God's wisdom.
Caitlin and I, we have to cross-check everything, especially now lately.
Twice
Yes.
or more.
Like when it came to buying a car, Caitlin's new car, not only did we do our research on what she wanted and the reviews and everything, but we also prayed about it for
Mm-hmm.
I think almost
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks.
That's good.
And then when we found her car, it just clicked. Like we knew that was the car.
It fell into place.
Yeah, and she was like, "Well, I don't know. It's a big investment and stuff like that." I'm like, "If you want it and you feel peace about it, there's your car."
I always
That's
put,
good.
do you want it? Do you need it? And
where we kinda
and
go,
and
Yeah.
can you afford it?
Right.
Can you afford it? Some people they say, okay, I like that one, but I can only afford this one.
Right.
But they don't want to do that. They want to go right to the one they like, and it may be too strong for their budget at that moment in time.
We talk about doing the research. You talk about taking the time to look into what is this, what is this. It's no different with the Bible. You talk about, you made the comment, you invested this here, here, and here. 5 years later, you got this. It was because you took the time to invest into X, Y, and Z studying. Studying scripture is going to help you so much more in
Oh
life
my goodness.
than any amount of
Untold.
time. If you were to say that, and I know it's obviously a longer period, but you would say in life you've learned more probably from lessons God's taught you than what college ever taught you.
Oh yes, yes.
And
Of
so-
course, untold.
And
And
they've had way more impact. Yes.
Untold. Down to real numbers and real income and real figures. In college didn't do any of those things for me.
no, and
I have a degree in psychology and I sell real estate. So see what I'm saying?
and that's the thing that is really something that if you can pick up quick, if you can understand quick, it's a learning process. It's a learning process. We think we're going to get in, oh man, we're financially struggling. We're in trouble from God. Learn something out of this. What are you supposed to learn out of this? You're here for a reason. There's something going on here for a reason. And it's not God saying you're in punishment right now. It's you're getting something out of this. It's when you can understand that it's a learning process and that everything is, whenever he says everything is going to be new every day, it's like, yeah, but you've never worked a 9 to 5, God. Like, yeah, it gets pretty lame at my job. It's like, no, you've got to understand every day is going to be something new, and it's going to be something that is going to help you and it's going to teach you. As that mindset and you continue to grow, you guys are, what was, were you at Venture?
We came to Cornerstone
Mm-hmm.
when we were pregnant with our first child, because we just felt the Lord saying, I have something more for you. We didn't know what more was. We just were praying. I mean, we were raised in a denomination, and
We broke out.
when we left it, I know one of his sisters thought, oh no. I mean, we were in hot water with her. She's the oldest of all of our siblings. But we found Cornerstone.
When it was in the old chapel.
When it was in the old
buildings
chapel
there.
The
and
OG
past-
venture. Yeah.
Yes.
The auditorium that you see, it wasn't even there.
Yeah.
I remember my dad's aunt and uncle Bill and Sue Lee talking about
Yes.
Cornerstone.
Yeah, we
And-
went. Yeah, we went when it was
Had
the
the-
chapel,
had
and
the-
you had the chair side and the pew side, and we had to
that
sit
was the
on
priest side and the nun side.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
And so it's funny to see. So we talk about the birth of home church, and we're 3 years into it. How long was Cornerstone a church?
Oh my goodness, I don't know. I don't know. It's just how we are. I mean, if something
30
was spiritually
plus.
wrong, which is why we ended up how things were, but we were at it over 30 years.
Wow.
How long
think
had it been?
so.
We were there.
I'm like,
Well,
that's my whole life. That was a
Right.
church my whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were there from when it was Cornerstone, and then Pastor Rick came, and he was youth pastor for our kids, and what a blessing that was. And then he did masters, and then he became associate pastor, and then we became Venture. So we've been there since the days of Pastor Jess, who just really laid a spiritual and biblical foundation for us.
Only the old buildings were there. None of the
Yeah, we were
none of
building
the-
fund.
the
Yeah.
offices or the auditorium or any of that wasn't. It didn't exist. It was just ground. Just land.
Yeah. So as a church that you've seen for over 30 years to 3 years here at home church, as an older church, you're going to see things change. I mean, over 30 years, that's going to be your technology, worship, the style of worship changes.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's nothing that it's bad. It's just
Change.
change of time. So over
Yes.
30 years, you're going to see change. Just in the 3 years of home church and over the 30 years there, are there a lot of similarities as far as because the community here is just, I love it. I mean, that's something I never would have thought I would be excited to see people at church and call them friend. It was just, you had to go to church because if you didn't, you wouldn't walk the line. And if you didn't walk the line, you were going to get in trouble. So that was my mindset. So community's never really been a thing. Was that a thing at Cornerstone as well? Or was,
It was. That's
It was. They
Keith
didn't
and
use the word community back
They
then.
were
Like, to me, that's kind of a new thing.
Um,
It's just like
Keith and Laurel Williams, Pastor Clayton's in-laws. They had small children. We got in with a group of people that all had young children, and that was
there were a bunch of us.
powerful and just so much fun. And I mean, like Keith and Laurel, we've known them like over 30 years. But I don't know, I can get kind of teary. There is just something very, very special about this place. And we loved Pastor, we loved Pastor Jess, we loved Cornerstone, we loved Pastor Rick, and we're very, very supportive of him at Venture. But there's just something extra special about this place. And we've always felt family within our church family, but it's just something additional that's here at home church. Something additional.
I got lucky enough to actually hear Pastor Jess one time, and the amount of passion and wisdom coming from that man when he preaches was insane.
Yeah.
So going from Pastor Jess to Pastor Rick, now to Pastor Clayton, I think it's just that amount of faith and wisdom that's been ingrained from day one is amazing and awe-inspiring. So having that baked into home church in the amount of service that everybody does and stuff like that, and just seeing how far we've come in 3 years is inspiring.
It is.
And
Very inspiring.
I mean, yeah.
And-
We thought we loved our church families and loved our pastors before, but I don't know.
it truly is a family.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. It
And
really,
when
really
you guys
is.
don't come on a Sunday, it just feels off. Yeah. If someone
Well,
doesn't
when
come,
any
it
of you,
just feels
yeah.
weird.
Somebody-
And
Yeah.
somebody might say, well, that's because, the number is smaller. I don't care about number. I care about people's hearts.
Right.
And the hearts here are just,
and so what I want to do here is I'm going to go split it and make it a part 2. We're going to go ahead and do a shout out. Beth has her Sleep in Heavenly Peace hat on.
She
So
does.
what we're going to do is I'll have you and Beth shout out
Okay.
Sleep in Heavenly Peace,
Yeah.
and then I will stop it, and then we'll make a part 2, so that way this one here isn't just completely like, oh
like
no.
5
So
hours long. Yeah.
yeah.
So, Sleep in Heavenly Peace is our one of our outreaches here at Home Church that builds beds and bunk beds for kids to make sure that none of the kids sleep on the ground here in our town. And when we had Larry on, he said they have like 50 to 75 different chapters all over the country and stuff like that. It's way bigger than I initially thought. So, were you guys part of the original team that kicked off Sleep in Heavenly Peace?
That just really
our
touched
chapter?
our hearts. We just knew we wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And Larry's such a good leader. Larry is and Tanya, we were talking about that on the way down. Tanya is a behind the scenes lady that does all the scheduling of people, and then she recontacts people right before we deliver, because we
Right,
have
yeah.
bed build days and then we have bed delivery days, which is what's coming.
Right.
And so we'll be delivering the beds that we built before.
Right.
But we just knew. We just yeah.
It's a complicated process to get everybody that needs or wants a bed at their house on the day when you
Right,
tell them they're
yeah.
coming, because some of these people, don't do a lot.
I can imagine just the scheduling conflict of
That's
everything.
Tanya.
Is
That's
insane.
Tanya.
That's all
Tanya,
Tanya.
Yeah.
she's amazing. I said, I'll do any grunt work you want. I couldn't
Right.
do that.
I'm the type of person. I'm like, I'm here to lift heavy things and put them back down. That's
Yeah,
the type
yeah,
of guy
that's
I
yeah.
am.
Can use
That's when
you.
I'm
Yeah.
Can use
happiest.
you.
That's when I'm happiest.
Larry's an amazing guy, and I can't think of anybody that would be better to lead up our
Oh,
chapter
he's
or anything like
fantastic.
that. So, how many blessings have you guys seen? I'm assuming you guys have delivered beds.
Mhm.
Many.
How many blessings and how many smiles have you seen on children's face because of that?
Oh, innumerable, innumerable. It's just neat. It's just so neat to know. Many of the kids, I mean, literally are on the floor. It's not an exaggeration. They're on the floor, like there's a little pillow and a little blanket, and that's where they are.
Right on the ground, on the
Yeah,
floor in
and
the room.
it's
Nothing else in the room, just that.
it's just so yeah. The kids are excited, the parents are excited, and so grateful, and it's just you're seeing firsthand. You get to see it when you bed build. That's a good thing, and we need people at the bed builds. But to deliver them and get to go into the homes and kids, oh my gosh, because we have mattresses and sheets. I usually go in and let them pick which set of sheets they
Right.
want and which blanket they want, and they really get into that. We haven't really had any sibling squabbles about that either, because I'll just say, okay, here's, I always put one extra out so they can decide. But then they make the bed. We'll pop the mattress and put it up. Then the kids and the parents make the bed. So it's, if you have any inkling that you would like to do it, you really should.
Right. And I mean, it's really, really fun to build the beds and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to deliver any of the
Mhm.
beds yet, but just seeing the community that gets behind Sleep in Heavenly Peace and
Mhm.
how much it's not like, oh, we got to build beds. It's more of we get to build beds for our community.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
The amount of excitement and how far our chapter has grown just since you guys started is insane.
Well,
So,
it's Larry and Tanya. It's Larry and Tanya at the head of it.
Yeah, and the hardest and the time-consuming thing is to get them actually into somebody's house that really needs them. And like one lady, we ended up putting 5 in that one house.
We did 3 and then we went back
Yeah.
and did 2 more.
Usually
Wow.
it's going to be 1 or 2.
right.
And sometimes we've done like somebody had lots of children. We actually did several sets or 2 sets of bunk beds. So you got to have the equipment and the dowel rods and the whatever to make what is normally just a 1-layer bed into a bunk
Into-
bed.
yeah.
It's awesome.
So, do you guys have a favorite story or favorite moment from? Sleep in
Oh,
Heavenly Peace?
oh my goodness. Just so
I know
many.
there's
Been in several.
Just
tons.
so many, because we've done all the deliveries with Larry, and we have so many beds this time. Larry goes, "We're going to have 2 teams," and I'm like, "One, we have to go without Larry," but he wants us to be a team and have people come with us and have a team, and then he will go, because we always have 2 guys that go in and put the bed together, because you have to put it together. You can't
Right.
haul it in, and then there'll be those of us that talk with the people and hopefully keep the kids, because there's power tools and stuff going
Right.
on. So I don't know.